Hello everyone, in this video I will explain journal about language and society written by William Downess. Language and Society by William Downess. Language and Society. Language is indissolubly linked with the members of the society in which it is spoken, and social factors are inevitably reflected in their speech. In this accessible introduction, Downess surveys the various ways that language can be studied as a social phenomenon. He discusses the known relationship between language variation and large-scale social factors, showing how the variation runs along fault lines in social structure, such as divisions between social classes, the sexes, and different ethnic groups. Topics covered include domains of language use, language change, code switching, speech as social action, and the nature of meaning and understanding. This thoroughly revised edition includes an up-to-date analysis of language standardization, language conflict and planning, and a critique of the pragmatic theory of communication. It explains and illustrates the notion of register and examines the issues surrounding language, ideology, and power. William Downess is lecturer in linguistics at the University of East Anglia. Previously, he taught English and linguistics at New York University, Toronto, and the London School of Economics. Linguistics and sociolinguistics. Language is a complicated business in everyday talk. We use the word language in many different ways. It isn't clear how language should be defined or what the person on the street thinks it actually is. We talk about how miraculously a child language is developing, but how they make charming grammar mistakes like me made that instead of I made that. Here, language is an ability that is blossoming in the child, but the word is used in a myriad of different ways. For example, people have strong views about how beautiful or how hideous the language is of some region or country or age group, how it sounds to the ear. People say I just adore Italian or an Irish accent. They grimace or smile at teenager talk on television. Here language is being judged aesthetically. By contrast, we remark that you can really appreciate a culture without knowing the language, as when we learn French or Japanese for that reason. Then pupils struggle with rules for tenses like the past, composed, and imperfect, or have to memorize gender and irregular verb conjugations, matters of grammar which seems a million miles from cushion, film, high-tech, or Zen Buddhism. Language here equates with grammar. Then people relate the word language to the expression of thought. They often say that they can find the words for their thought or express feeling. or they are hunting for the right words. Alternatively, we say that language is a means of communication. Politicians often use an excuse the fact that their message just isn't getting across because the media distorts what they say. In negotiation or relationship, when communication fails, we say they just don't speak the same language. In another sense, language refers to a school subject. It makes sense to say that little Mary is behind in her English. Although you never know it when you hear her chatting with her friends. Language is being viewed as a set of skills acquired in school. We are taught to write standard English and spell correctly. At the same time, we use the term language analogically as a metaphor. We talk of such things as body language or the language of music, painting, or dance. It is fairly clear that this various or general use of the word refers to different aspects of language and take different perspectives on the sport of the language is. Or alternatively, we have simply grouped together under the heading of language a range of diverse phenomena which are only partially related to each other. In order to clarify our talk about language, let's look at some of the ways language is viewed by linguistics. We can then give a precise statement of the specifically sociolinguistic views of language and contrast it to other views of language assumed in linguistic proper. The primary aim of all linguistic scholarship is to determine the properties of natural language, the features it has which distinguish it from any possible artificial language. This means that linguistics will be university in its basic aims. It will examine individual natural language in the course of construction at the area of universal grammar that explains why the whole set of natural language are the way they are. Natural language, English, French, and so on, are in fact the depth for this theory of natural language. Artificial language are of interest to science. They can exhibit certain properties any language has, but they also have features that can sharply distinguish them from any naturally evolved language. We will look at some artificial language to illustrate this. The linguist Noam Chomsky, in his influential book Syntactic Structures, 1957, employed the following language in the course of his arguments. So guys, you can look at this. Why would we want to call one, two, or three languages? The answer is that they have certain properties of any language. They have a vocabulary of symbols. In this case, the letters of the alphabet A and B also they have a syntax. That is, each of the language has specific rules for joining together their symbols to produce the sentence or strings of that language. If the rule of syntax is not followed, then the string or sentence produced is not a sentence of that language. Consider the syntactic rule of the three languages. In language, the rule seems to be that for each sentence, whatever the number of occurrences of the first symbol, its is immediately followed by exactly the same number of occurrences of the second symbol. B in language 2, the rule is that for each sentence, whatever the arrangement of A and B in the first half of that sentence, then that arrangement is repeated and reversed in the second half of the same sentence. I will leave the reader to work out the equally simple syntax of language 3. Note that the output of the application of their respective syntactic rules to the symbols of the language is an infinite set of strings which are members of the language sharply distinguishable from another infinite set of strings which are not members of the language. In brief, then, these artificial languages have vocabularies and syntactic rules for joining their symbols together, and by following the rules of their syntax, an infinite set of strings can be produced. Natural language can also be considered in this way. This English can be viewed as a set of strings, and this infinite set is produced by the vocabulary and syntactic rules of English. If linguistics can construct or devise a grammar which can specify the grammatical string of English and separate them from the combination of symbols which are not English, they have gone a considerable distance toward making explicit the syntactic properties of the language, and if the type of rule in the grammar are also necessary for the grammar of any natural language, then they might have discovered some of those universal properties of language which it is aim of linguistics to discover. Chomsky in fact used language 1, 2, and 3 to rule out a certain class of grammars as candidates for grammars of natural language. Of course, these artificial languages are also extremely unlike natural language. One very noticeable difference is that the symbol and string don't bear any relation to the word. They have no sense or meanings, but are purely syntactic. The study of meaning and how it relates symbols to the word is called semantics. Thank you.